Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm one of the directors at Copello. I'm here today at Aquila Air Traffic Management Services with Helena Cole, who's the Finance and HR Director. I think what would be great if you could start by telling us a little bit more about what you do at Aquila.
Yes, certainly. I'm the Finance and HR Director, which is a really odd combination. So I'm a finance person by background, but I've worked in HR for about 5 years now. So I've got bits of both, and I look after both those teams in Aquila. I also have the office management team and a couple of the executive assistants. So it's an odd mix, but a wonderful mix.
How did you get to Aquila? Tell us a little bit more about your background.
Okay, so like lots of people, when I left university, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I did lots of interesting things in my 20s. And then when I was about 30, I decided that I needed to go and get a proper job, needed to work out what I wanted to do. And I accidentally fell into accountancy. And then I ended up in BAE. And then Babcock, and now Aquila. So I've been working in the defence industry for about 15, 16 years now.
So how is Aquila different from working for some of the larger primes and bigger companies?
So one of the massive advantages of working in a smaller company is that you can make a difference. Everybody knows everybody. So in Whiteley, in these offices, there are only 150 people. So you do get to know everybody, you know, and people get to know me and I get to know them. And that means that you can make a real difference and your voice can be heard in a way that it's much, much harder for that to happen in a bigger company.
We have International Women's Day coming up. What does that mean to you?
So I have a degree in history and a master's degree in women's studies.
I saw that. Yeah.
Which is an odd combination for a finance person, but I did the subjects I was interested in. And for me, I've studied the history of feminism, and where we've come is such a long way as women, but actually there's still so much further to go. If I look around in big businesses, there are so few women at the top, and actually it's just really important that we take the time out occasionally to reassess and to realise how far we've come and how far we've still got to go.
I saw the theme for this year is breaking the bias.
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
So I think I've seen lots of biases. One of the things that isn't as obvious is that I had a child at 16. And when I first went to work when I was 18, I had lots of, not only was I a woman, but I was a single parent in the 1980s when that was definitely frowned upon, and I got lots of bias from that point of view. But I now look back on that time and think that has made me more resilient, more of a fighter, and it's meant that I can survive in a world that might be slightly harder.
We both know being in defence, it's quite a male-dominated environment regardless, and there are some stereotypes. So how have you found not only being a woman in your position, but also being in the defence industry? So
actually I found that quite interesting, and I was expecting that there would be more bias because there are so few women, but actually I found it refreshing. And there isn't that bias. You are not, it is not thought that you can't do things because you're a woman. You do have to put up with a lot more masculinity. And I worked in the dockyard with shipbuilding. Yeah. And, you know, once lots of the people in management positions had previously been shipbuilders. So, you know, you just have to accept that some of that vernacular is what you're putting up with. If you are at all worried about that, then it would be a very hard place to work. Yeah. But I've become completely immune over the years.
Yeah. And surely it makes it a bit fun as well.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And actually, the opportunity to really feel like you're making a difference to the nation. I mean, what we do in Aquila, in servicing the air traffic control systems for the RAF, means that I'm part of something that is helping the RAF to fly, that is, you know, helping our country defend itself. That's an amazing feeling. So it's really good to be part of that.
Russell and I have had lots of conversations with you and some of the senior management team about ED&I, especially recently. How do you think organisations can really make a difference with that as a culture, rather than it just being, you know, something that's put into the handbook and onto the website?
So I think you have to live and breathe it. It has to be part of your DNA. You have to really believe it rather than just throw lip service to it.
Yeah.
It's important that when managers are recruiting, that they are thinking, you know, that's an excellent person, and I understand that I am attempting to recruit in my own image, because we all do that to a certain extent, but that they understand their unconscious biases and that they are consciously making the decision to recruit somebody from a diverse background. And that's one of the things that we are really looking at in Aquila, to ensure that we actually have people from a range of backgrounds.
Some of the teams that we've recruited into over the past sort of year or so, especially within systems engineering, have been really diverse. I know that for yourselves and for the team and the managers out there, that it's not about finding a female to tick a box on diversity and there isn't that positive discrimination. It's all about finding that right person for the job. Would you agree?
I would, wholeheartedly. I would hate to think that I had ever got a job just because I was a woman.
Yeah, right.
And actually positive discrimination, I think, it puts things backwards, because then you end up in a job that you're not capable for, and that actually puts people in a position where they start thinking, oh well, maybe women aren't capable of doing that, or maybe that isn't the right thing to do, and the person themselves feels very uncomfortable because they've been put somewhere where it's a job that they can't do. So I would absolutely encourage people to employ people from a diverse background if they are the right person for the job and that they are capable of doing that. What is interesting is that in some areas it is important that you get people from a defence background. So if I'm recruiting somebody who understands how the radars work, they're more likely to come from a defence background. But if I'm recruiting somebody in HR, for instance, then they don't have to have come from an HR, from a defence background. And I think that it's horses for courses, isn't it? Different areas of the business, that defence background is going to become more and more important. So I think you just recruit for the role that you're recruiting for, and some of that will mean you've got somebody from a defence background, and some of it will mean that you haven't. And as long as not everyone is from a defence background, then you can get that diversity of thought that's so important.
So why do you think it's important that we have more women in leadership roles?
The thing I hadn't really realised when I became a director, lots of women, and far more than I ever thought, came up to me and said, actually, you're a role model. You have shown me that I can get to the top. As a woman, I never thought that that was possible. And actually, the more you see people from diverse backgrounds in those leadership roles, the more other people from those diverse backgrounds start thinking, actually, do you know what, I could do that. And then it's a snowball effect. So you do need more and more.
So I wonder how many years it would take for us to be kind of at a point where we're probably not having these conversations because it's just the norm. Like, do you think that will be sometime in the near future, or do you think we've got a way to go?
I think we've got a long way to go. And, we need to have a look at some of the things that we already do. So if you are a married couple, for instance, and you have children, it is more likely that the wife will go part-time or will take some time out for the children, and that's going to have a detrimental effect on her career. There are couples now where the man is taking that time out and they're the ones looking after the children.
Yeah.
But I think you need more and more of that so that actually those things are equal. And you look at, there was some research that was done during the pandemic, both partners working at home, children being homeschooled, and the women were still doing the majority of that and the men were not. And actually, until you start breaking down those gender stereotypes within families, it's going to be really hard for women to move forwards, because they're actually really very, very busy trying to keep a home together, too busy to be concentrating on their careers. And as I said previously, because I had a child so young, I never had to worry about that. By the time I was thinking about a career, my child was a teenager and she wasn't needing me so much.
Yeah.
And I never had to make those decisions. But women are, on a day in and day out basis, and that is what is holding us back.
During your career, what women have inspired you?
In terms of inspiration within the defence industry, to be honest with you, I've been the most senior woman, so that's very hard. But in terms of inspirations outside, Deborah Meaden has been a definite inspiration. I saw her on Dragon's Den and she has got to the top while still remaining herself.
Just to kind of round things off, what advice would you give your younger self? If you were Helena just starting out in your career, what would you tell her?
I would say be you. I spent a lot of time looking at men in senior positions who were tough on their staff, who were, trying to get things done in a very male way, and feeling maybe that's the way that I should be behaving. And actually what I've learned is that the skills I have from being a mother, the nurturing, all of that, that's really important, and it's much, much better than the tough male attitude. And actually what we're doing more and more is teaching men to see the empathetic side and to nurture their staff. That's what I would teach my former self. I would say, just go and be you. Don't try and be anybody else, because you are fine.
You really are inspirational, so thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about things.
Brilliant.
And hopefully inspire some other women to realise that they can be whoever they want to be.
Absolutely, thank you.